You see, ladies and gentlemen, life will bring you many kinds of people. Some will lift you, some will test you, but then there's a kind of person who doesn't want to grow with you, they want to own you. A narcissist isn't just someone who loves themselves too much. That's a common misunderstanding. At their core, a narcissist is someone who is deeply insecure, but covers it up with a mask of superiority, manipulation, and emotional control. They don't build real confidence. They construct an image, a fragile one. Their sense of self-worth is not rooted within. They feed it by controlling how you see them. And that's the key. Everything a narcissist does is designed to maintain that image. The charm, the flattery, the drama, the guilt trips, even the explosive anger. It's not random, it's strategic. They use emotional manipulation like a tool disguised as love, disguised as care, disguised as concern to keep people orbiting around them. Why? Because your admiration, your validation, your obedience, that's what keeps their illusion alive. The moment you stop feeding it, their whole world starts to crack. But here's what you need to know, really know. A narcissist's true weakness is exposure, not exposure to the world, but to you. They fear the moment you stop being confused, the moment you stop second-guessing yourself, the moment you see clearly, because when you see them clearly, when you recognize the patterns and the games, they lose their grip on your reality. That's their nightmare, a person they can no longer manipulate. They don't fear confrontation, they thrive in chaos. They don't fear you yelling at them, they can twist that and play the victim. What they fear is calm truth. A still mind, a focused heart, someone who no longer reacts, someone who no longer plays their game. Because the narcissist doesn't have power on their own. They borrow it. They steal it from your reactions, your emotions, your kindness, and your confusion. You see, a narcissist needs to be the smartest one in the room, the most powerful, the one you can't live without. So when you begin to show independence, when you start setting boundaries, when you stop engaging in the drama and start healing, they panic. They may not show it, but trust me, it shakes them to their core because now they're standing in front of someone they can't control, someone who's not impressed, someone who doesn't need them. And that kind of person is dangerous to their entire identity. The weakness is the truth they try so hard to hide. The truth that they're not strong, they're dependent on the image, the control, the illusion of perfection. They cannot stand to be ordinary. They cannot bear to be powerless. And when you recognize that, when you understand that their dominance is a mask and their cruelty is a shield, you stop fearing them. You stop trying to win their approval. You stop questioning your worth. And that's the beginning of real power. Because when you stop giving them the reaction they crave, when you don't explain, when you don't argue, when you don't defend, they're left with nothing. No fuel, no control, no stage. And what's left? A hollow performance. So the real question is, how do you defeat a narcissist? Not with louder words, not with revenge, not with games. You defeat a narcissist with clarity. Clarity is their kryptonite, self-worth is their destruction, and peace is what they cannot stand. They want chaos, they want confusion, because if you're busy doubting yourself, you won't have time to doubt them. But once you see through the smoke, once you realize you were never the problem, the game is over. And it only takes one moment, one sentence, one decision to stop participating. That's the key. Understand this deeply. Narcissists don't fear strength. They fear the moment you realize you're strong. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're grounded, because you've unplugged from the system they built. You no longer serve their story. And when you stop feeding the illusion, it dies. That is their greatest fear and your greatest freedom. Let me know if you want this woven directly into the speech or turned into a narrated script with cinematic structure. There is a moment in every person's life where they have to decide who gets access to their peace. And that moment often comes after pain, after manipulation, after being emotionally pulled in every direction by someone who only sees you as a tool for their control. That's where boundaries come in, not as walls to shut the world out, but as doors you choose to close when someone keeps tracking mud into your life. Now listen, when you're dealing with a narcissist, boundaries are not just important, they're vital. Because a narcissist doesn't respect your emotional space. They don't honor your time, your energy, your individuality. In fact, your independence threatens them. So what do? They test you, they push, they manipulate, not always with loud commands, but with subtle guilt, silent treatment, blame games, fake apologies, anything to blur the line between their wants and your needs. You have to understand something. To a narcissist, a boundary feels like rejection, not because you're being unkind, but because they no longer have unrestricted access to your mind. You are no longer their puppet. And that scares them. They will say you're being difficult. They will say you've changed. They will say you're overreacting. But what they won't say is the truth. I don't like that you're finally protecting yourself. That's what boundaries do. They protect. They define, they teach people how to treat you. And the ones who benefit from crossing those lines will always be the first to get offended when you draw them. Let me tell you something. Setting a boundary is not aggression. It's not cruelty. It's not betrayal. It's self-respect. It's emotional hygiene. You don't wait until your house is full of mold before you clean it. And you don't wait until your soul is drained to start saying no. A narcissist will test your boundaries over and over again because to them, consent is negotiable. They see your silence as agreement, your kindness as weakness, your forgiveness as permission to keep hurting you. But the moment you say no more, the moment you say that's not acceptable, the moment you stop explaining yourself just to be understood, you begin to shift the power dynamic. You're not being too much, you're being just enough to save yourself. You see, most people are taught how to love others, but very few are taught how to love themselves in front of others. And loving yourself in front of a narcissist means standing firm even when they twist your words, even when they gaslight your reality, even when they cry and plead and pretend to change just long enough to get back in. A narcissist doesn't fear confrontation. They fear consistency. They fear a person who doesn't budge, who says what they mean and means what they say, who doesn't need to yell or argue, because truth is not up for debate. Boundaries don't mean you hate them. Boundaries mean you love yourself, enough to protect your heart, enough to guard your peace, enough to stop confusing emotional survival with love. And here's the part nobody tells you. When you set a boundary, they might leave. They might walk away. They might smear your name, but let them walk, because anybody who leaves when you start respecting yourself was never really there for you. They were there for the version of you they could control. Now, here's what's powerful. Boundaries are not for the narcissist. They are for you. The point isn't to fix them or teach them or change them. The point is to remind yourself that your worth does not depend on how much you're willing to tolerate. You don't owe anyone access to your inner world just because they've known you for a long time. Familiarity is not the same as loyalty. You don't need to shout your boundary. You don't need to explain it 10 times. You don't need to convince anyone. Because a real boundary isn't a performance. It's a posture. It's quiet, firm, non-negotiable. It's not about revenge. It's about release. You are not here to be someone else's emotional crutch. You are not here to be constantly drained just to keep someone else comfortable. You were born to live free, to love fully, to grow deeply. And that can't happen when your soul is trapped under the weight of someone else's dysfunction. So say it. Say it with your actions. Say it with your peace. This is where I end and you begin. You don't get to decide how I feel, how I heal, or how I live. That sentence, that awareness, that boundary, that's power. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you'll never go back to being someone else's emotional prisoner. Absolutely. Here's the expanded version of the third keynote. The sentence that cuts through illusion, delivered in a powerful educational tone with emotional depth, something that would hit hard in a speech styled like Denzel Washington, calm, firm, and soul-stirring. There's a moment in every life where clarity arrives, not with fireworks, not with anger, but with stillness. A moment where you no longer look at someone through the lens of hope or history, but through the sharp, clear lens of truth. That's the moment a narcissist fears most. And that's the moment where a single sentence can change everything. That sentence, I see you for who you are, and you no longer have power over me. Now, it might not sound dramatic, it might not sound like some grand confrontation, but for the narcissist, it's an earthquake, because that one sentence doesn't just call them out, it cuts through everything they've worked to build, the lies, the games, the charm, the illusion of control. You see, narcissists build castles out of confusion. They rule by fog. They twist words, rewrite history, and turn every confrontation into your fault. Why? Because as long as you're confused, they're in control. They don't care if you're hurt. They care if you stop believing them. They don't panic when you cry. They panic when you go quiet, when you stop explaining yourself, when your voice stops trembling, because that means something inside you has changed. That sentence, that one clear declaration is not just a boundary. It's a breaking of the spell. It's the moment you realize their manipulation is a cycle, not a mistake. It's the moment you stop looking for closure and create it yourself. It's the moment you stop playing a role in their performance. I see you for who you are. Those words carry weight because a narcissist lives in the illusion of their own perfection. They wear masks of the victim, the hero, the martyr, the lover, and they change those masks depending on who's watching. But when you see them clearly, without fear, without guilt, without needing their approval, you take the stage away, you pull the curtain back, and you realize the wizard was just smoke and mirrors all along, and you no longer have power over me. That second half, that's liberation. That's where the healing begins. Because narcissistic power doesn't come from strength. It comes from your attention, your emotions, your confusion, your need for their validation. The moment you no longer need their approval, their power dissolves. They don't control you through force. They control you through access. Access to your emotions, access to your triggers, access to your self-worth. And that sentence, delivered calmly, clearly, without rage, is a closing of that door, not with bitterness, but with finality. Now understand, a narcissist will react. Oh yes, they will push back. They'll accuse you of being cold, disloyal, ungrateful. They'll try to guilt you, shame you, bait you, not because they love you, but because they need the stage back. They need the spotlight. They need to reestablish control. But when you hold firm to your truth, when you stay rooted in your clarity, you become immovable. You become untouchable. And that's what they fear most. You don't have to scream it. You don't have to text it. Sometimes you don't even have to say it out loud, because that sentence, it's not just words. It's an internal shift. A new reality. It's in the way you don't respond to their provocation, the way you stop second-guessing yourself, the way your eyes no longer search for their approval. That's power, silent power, soul-deep power, and that's what they can't handle. That sentence is the doorway to a new identity, one where you are no longer a prisoner of someone else's dysfunction. One where your worth is not up for negotiation, one where peace is not something you beg for, but something you protect. Narcissists don't just fear exposure, they fear empowered detachment. They fear someone who can see their game and walk away from it. Because the truth is, narcissists don't change because they don't see a problem with how they operate. But you can change, you can grow, you can rise. And that sentence, that moment of clarity, is the spark. I see you for who you are, and you no longer have power over me. It's not just a sentence, it's a sword, it's a key, it's a mirror turned back on them, showing them something they never wanted to face, that their control was an illusion, and your silence was never weakness, it was restraint. And now you've outgrown the script. They can't handle that. They can't control that. They can only watch. As you walk away from the game, they thought you'd never leave. So remember that sentence, not as a threat, but as a declaration, a promise to yourself. Because when you say it and when you live it, you don't just scare a narcissist, you set yourself free. Absolutely. Here's the expanded version of the fourth keynote. Self-worth is the weapon, written in a powerful educational tone, grounded in emotional truth and deep clarity, much like something Denzel Washington would deliver with calm authority and quiet fire. There's a power that can't be faked, a strength that doesn't shout, doesn't flex, doesn't look for validation. It comes from knowing who you are without needing permission to be it. That power is self-worth, and to a narcissist, it's the most dangerous thing you can possess. A narcissist survives by feeding on uncertainty, not their own, but yours. Your doubt is their fuel. If they can make you question your value, your reality, your memory, your instincts, they win. Because the more disconnected you are from your worth, the more you look to them to define it. They want to be the mirror you look into every day so they can distort it, twist it, use it. But when you build real self-worth, when your value isn't something they gave you, but something you found in yourself, they lose access to the control they once had. Because now you don't need their approval to feel valid. You don't need their praise to feel confident. You don't need their presence to feel whole. You become your own foundation, and that shakes the entire framework of their control. Here's the truth. Narcissists don't want equals. They want subordinates. They want admirers. They want people who look up to them, not eye to eye with them. And the moment you begin to walk in your worth, to speak with conviction, to live with dignity, they start to lose you. Slowly, then suddenly. They'll say you've become arrogant. They'll say you're selfish. They'll say you've changed. And they're right. You have changed, because self-worth changes everything. It changes the way you respond to disrespect. It changes the way you tolerate mistreatment. It changes the way you see see manipulation not as love, but as control. It changes what you allow, what you entertain, what you chase, and what you walk away from. You begin to realize that your peace is not up for negotiation. Your kindness is not a contract. Your forgiveness is not a pass for repeated harm. You stop explaining your boundaries and start living them. You stop asking, am I too much? And start asking, are they enough for the life I'm building? This shift, this awakening, it terrifies a narcissist because their influence relies on one thing, your belief that they are the source of your value. And when you break that belief, you break the chain. They will try to lure you back in with flattery, with apologies, with promises to change. But when you know your worth, you're no longer moved by words. You watch actions, you observe patterns, you trust yourself. That's the ultimate rebellion, trusting yourself again, not second guessing, not shrinking to fit their narrative, not apologizing for taking up space. You stop looking for their validation because you've already validated yourself. You stop waiting to be chosen because you choose yourself. You stop trying to fix people who benefit from your brokenness, and suddenly they don't recognize you anymore. That's not your problem. That's the result of healing. You see, self-worth isn't loud. It's not about proving anything. It's quiet. It's rooted. It's the ability to walk away, not because you're bitter, but because you're better. Not better than them, just better than who you used to be when you allowed them to define your story. And this isn't just about narcissists. It's about how you see yourself. Because when you believe you are enough, without performance, without perfection, without begging, your life starts to change. You make better choices. You protect your energy. You align with people who respect your soul, not just your service. You start living like someone who knows they belong, someone who knows their boundaries are not barriers, they're bridges to peace, someone who knows that being alone is better than being manipulated, someone who realizes that love should feel like freedom, not survival. The narcissist will fear that, because they can't use someone who's no longer confused. They can't guilt someone who's no longer ashamed. They can't control someone who knows their worth. So walk in your power. Don't wait for their permission to rise. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone your identity. You were never meant to be someone else's emotional supply. You are enough, fully, entirely, unshakably. And once you know that, really know that, no one can take it from you, not even them. There comes a point when your silence becomes louder than any argument, when your stillness says more than your shouting ever could. That's the moment of true detachment. And to a narcissist, that moment is terrifying because they don't fear you leaving loudly. They fear you leaving quietly. No warnings, no debates, no breakdowns, just peace. Detachment doesn't mean you don't feel, doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you've stopped being controlled. It means you've come home to yourself. You no longer carry the emotional burden of trying to fix what you didn't break. You stop showing up to battles that were designed to keep you spinning. You walk away, not to hurt them, but to heal you. Narcissists thrive on emotional reaction. That's their game. They create chaos, then feed off your need to resolve it. They push you to the edge, then blame you for falling. They say one thing, do another, and make you feel crazy for noticing. Why? Because if you're busy reacting, you're not reflecting. If you're defending yourself, you're not observing their pattern. You're too wrapped up in emotion to see clearly. But when you detach, everything shifts. You stop reacting. You stop explaining. You stop proving. You stop dancing to the rhythm they set. You become emotionally unavailable to the drama. And that right there is the beginning of freedom. A narcissist can't manipulate someone who no longer needs their approval. They can't bait someone who refuses to bite. Detachment is not numbness. It's clarity. It's peace. It's knowing what you will and will not accept without needing to scream it from the rooftop. When you're attached to the outcome, they can play with your emotions. They'll dangle false hope, promise change, drop crumbs of affection when they feel you pulling away. But when you're detached, you see it for what it is, a tactic, a cycle, a pattern you've already outgrown. You stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And you start asking, why am I staying? You stop saying they didn't mean it, and you start saying, this doesn't work for me anymore. That shift, when you move from seeking change in them to choosing change in you, that's the moment everything starts to fall into place. Detachment doesn't mean you don't love them. It means you love yourself enough to stop bleeding for someone who keeps handing you the knife. It's not cruel, it's not heartless, it's survival. Emotional detachment is how you take your power back without swinging a sword. Because the real power, it's never in control, it's in choice. And the narcissist knows it. They know they can't handle you when you stop being predictable, when you no longer respond to guilt, when their absence no longer stings, when you stop waiting on the apology that's never coming. That's when they lose their grip, because you're not fighting anymore, you're freeing. And here's the beauty of it. Detachment isn't about them at all. It's about you. It's about your peace, your energy, your time. You stop measuring your worth through their behavior. You stop interpreting their silence as a statement about you. You stop needing them to understand you because you understand yourself. You no longer need closure from them because the clarity within you is enough. You understand that peace is not the absence of noise. It's the absence of emotional dependency. It's waking up and not checking your phone for validation. It's hearing their voice and feeling nothing, not hate, not rage, just space, distance, neutrality. And that is the ultimate power. Because when you reach that place, when you can look at someone who once had emotional control over you and feel no need to chase, fix, or prove, you've won. You've broken the chain. You've reclaimed the parts of you that were slowly slipping away in that toxic cycle. And most importantly, you've returned home to yourself. The narcissist will notice. They always do. They'll try to pull you back in through guilt, through charm, through fake crises. But this time it doesn't work. Why? Because your emotional anchor is no longer tied to their chaos. You're grounded somewhere else now, in self-respect, in inner peace, in the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not angry, you're awake. You're not distant, you're done. Detachment's not the end of love. It's the end of manipulation. It's the end of running in circles. It's the end of hoping someone who broke you will be the one to fix you. You fix you, you choose you, you heal you. And when you do, that silent power you carry, the unshakable, unmovable kind, that's what leaves the narcissist with nothing left to control. And that's when you realize peace was never found in fixing them. Peace was always found in finally choosing you. One sentence that will make a narcissist fear you forever. Delivered in the deep, firm, emotionally stirring tone of Denzel Washington, with an educational edge and soul-shaking truth. So here we are. After all the manipulation, after all the silent treatments, the gaslighting, the mind games, there comes a moment where you stop asking questions about them and start giving answers to yourself. That moment is where your power is reborn. Because what truly makes a narcissist fear you forever isn't rage, it's not revenge, it's not trying to expose them, it's the quiet, calm, unshakable power of clarity, of a soul that's done performing, of a heart that finally knows its worth, of a mind that sees through the smoke and doesn't flinch. It's the power to say one sentence, not in anger, but in certainty. I see you for who you are, and you no longer have power over me. That's the moment the illusion breaks. That's when the fear sets in, not in you, but in them, because they realize the game is over. You're no longer reactive. You're no longer attached. You're no longer theirs to confuse, control, or manipulate. And you don't just walk away, you rise. You walk into peace, into self-respect, into a life that doesn't revolve around convincing someone else to treat you right. And the beauty of it all, you don't need to hurt them to heal yourself. You don't need to destroy them to find your freedom. You just need to reclaim your voice, your truth, your value. Because when you stop needing their approval, you take back the one thing they fear the most, your independence, your clarity, your detachment, your peace. So the next time a narcissist tries to twist the truth, to pull you back into the storm, to bait you with chaos or silence, just remember, you don't need to fight. You don't need to argue. You don't need to plead. Just look them in the eyes or in your own mirror and say, I see you for who you are, and you no longer have power over me. Then walk away like a warrior in stillness. Because the greatest revenge is not in destruction. It's in elevation. And when you rise, when you become untouchable from the inside out, that's when they remember you forever.